Welcome to this week's episode of Top Shelf Dusters. Amanda's not here. She's at a concert, from my understanding. I think she's going to see the Wiggles with her children, her 25,000 children. So, thank God she's not here. My name is Jesse, and then I'm also joined by Cass.
Hi, everyone. The Bruins made a couple moves this week. We'll talk about it. Nothing major.
Nothing major at all. No, not at all. And then Ethan's back. Oh, no, wait. Ethan was here last week. Hi, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm half here tonight. Half here.
Why is that? Why half here?
Three-fourths here. I won't be here for the last part, but
So we're going to get 75% of your effort this time.
75%.
Love it.
I thought you were going to say,
Maximum
like, you got your leg amputated or something, and we didn't know about it, and just, like, hold up a stump or something.
Imagine that. That'd be crazy.
That'd be freaking wild.
So we're going to go over some of the top headlines in the NHL this week. A lot has happened, as Cass mentioned, maybe not with his Bruins. Got some NHL injury updates as well. And then at the end, we're going to have our first ever Top Shelf Dusters interview with Matt Vensel. He is a Pittsburgh beat reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're really excited about that. It's going to be an awesome interview, so stick around. Make sure you check that out when it happens. Cass, you want to take it over, sir?
Sure. It'll be even better because Ethan wasn't there.
Ethan was not there, which is why in my mind I was like, Ethan's back.
75%.
We're going to jump right into something that happened tonight. To no one's surprise, and it was previously announced, Joe Thornton's number 19 was retired by San Jose tonight. Could have been the Bruins, but they traded away Joe Thornton, and then he won the MVP the same year. So way to go.
Nice.
Surprised that wasn't a Don Sweeney move too, but it wasn't. Yeah, so no surprise there. It was awesome. His family and it looked like his parents were out on the ice with him, and it from what I understand, he's just like the best human being ever. Like genuine, kind-hearted soul. So congrats, Jumbo Joe. Your next step is Toronto for the Hockey Hall of Fame.
At least it's not for the team, right? Right.
What?
Yeah. Joining the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, at least he doesn't
Oh,
have to
he
go
already
there.
played there once.
Oh, that's right. He did. Well, at least he's not having to go back again.
Yeah.
And did you guys see the clip from that interview he did where he talks about just he's a hockey dude?
I didn't see the clip. You're going to have to send it to me.
So the clip it's just like an interview,
Mhm.
and the main clip that's circulating is Joe Thornton's basically like, yeah, every year when I was with a different team, it was just like a new group of guys, and I just love hockey so much. I'm playing with whoever I'm playing with, and he doesn't look at it like I have to be with this squad. I have to be with these players to be good. He just wants to play hockey, and that's why he played as long as he did.
He did play a long time. He definitely did. And he was a very good player. It's unfortunate that he's no longer here. I miss his beard. I don't know if you saw the shirt that their mascot SJ Sharkey was wearing. I sent it in the Discord chat, but it was just a gigantic picture of his face, and I'm like, bro, I want that shirt so bad. It was so good.
I can't wait to see that plaque in the Hockey Hall of Fame next time I go. I hope it's the whole thing. Like
it better be the beard.
The plaque so they can fit the beard,
And it's so funny because him and Joe Pavelski, they were part of that Shark squad. Brent Burns, there were others, but
yeah, don't forget Patrick Marleau. Yeah, it's definitely Joe Pavelski, not Patrick
Yeah,
Marleau. Yeah, because Marleau didn't play on the Sharks. That's why I didn't mention him. That's okay though. I get it.
But back when the Stars played in the Pacific Division, I hated the Sharks, hated the Ducks. And then we get Joe Pavelski. It's been some time since we were in that division. And now I look at the players and I'm like, dang, mad respect.
The team was stacked.
I think everyone hated just going through California at one point. It's kind of been a little bit easy. I don't want to say easy. That's not fair. But it's definitely not. It hasn't been what it was, say, 10 years ago for quite some time, and it's unfortunate because those teams were stacked. They had really great players. They were very competitive. Now the Kings are kind of like the only competitive one, and even that's not saying a lot. Hopefully the Ducks and the Sharks can get back into form sometime soon.
Yeah.
Agreed. Amanda, shut the hell up. We don't care.
Oh,
watch the Wiggles.
boo. Go back to watching the
Hi,
Wiggles.
Cat.
Yeah, you
Cat-
can't just pop in the chat and not
know, right?
Yeah.
For the record, I tried to hire Kat for this episode, and Amanda had a full meltdown.
That's not true. I shut it down.
Speaking of bad decisions,
Yes.
Quinn Hughes just tonight, I believe
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, it was tonight.
Got a 5-minute major and a game misconduct for boarding on Josh Norris. And if you watched the podcast last week, we talked about the Jamie Benn on, I don't know his first name, Coyle
Charlie?
hit.
Charles? Chuck?
What is his first name?
Chuck Coyle?
Does anyone know?
It's Charlie.
Charlie. Oh, Charlie Coyle. There was a boarding incident that just was a 2-minute minor penalty. And this one is actually less egregious than the Benn hit. But
You don't think it was warranted of the ejection?
if I'm comparing the Benn on Coyle hit, that was a 2-minute minor, then this hit that Quinn Hughes delivers is not a 5 in game.
It's a check from behind though, right? And then there is
But it's called boarding.
okay.
Check from behind is another. You have to call that penalty if that's what it is, and they called it boarding,
So
which is
Um,
what the Benn hit was.
Freak, what they call it. It's dirty and it's not. It doesn't belong in the NHL. That's
So-
all I care about.
there is a stipulation to the rule, NHL Rule 41.5, that states a boarding penalty resulting, quote, in an injury to the face or head of an opponent is given an automatic game misconduct. My understanding is that Josh Norris did have a little bit of a cut. He was bleeding afterwards. So I think that's why they did
His
that.
face hit the wrong part of the boards. That's it.
and he was busted open. He was bleeding. So that's why I think they gave him that, was because they really didn't have a choice. That's what the rule states. So I'm not against it. It's the rules. That it is what it is. This was Quinn Hughes' first major penalty, is what I saw.
Yeah.
I think ever. Yeah, Hughes' first career major penalty. So that's pretty crazy.
It's not
Wow.
a super bad looking hit.
No,
I think the Benn hit is worse than this.
I agree.
And I think had they called that hit charging rather than boarding, they may have gotten like a 5-minute, I think.
Later
but
on-
this should be 2 minutes.
I was gonna say later on in the episode we'll go into how Ethan's opinion is wrong on these because he got the Ryan Reeves suspension wrong. But we'll get into that in a couple. I love baby.
so moving on
Speaking
from
of first,
yeah. Wait, what? What are you talking about?
well, I mean, it's his first. So, yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
So Sidney Crosby scored 600
His first.
goals.
His first 600th goal.
I see.
where I was
I get
going
what
with
you're
that.
going with that. Sidney Crosby scored his 600th goal tonight in the game against the Utah Hockey Club. The goal came at 3 minutes and 11 seconds of the second period during a 5-on-3 power play. He got a pass from Erik Karlsson, who did something. That's pretty crazy, right? Crosby's 1,295 games played are the most in Pittsburgh Penguins history. This dude, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. Like, I don't even think anyone is against that sort of opinion. That's not a hot take. What a legend. What an absolute legend. I've come to like a lot of the players that I hated as a kid, Sidney Crosby being one of them. I'm not going to lie. I started to like Brad Marchand a couple years ago too, Cass. So, blow those kisses at me, baby. So it's nice to see these guys making history for the league.
So what's even better is Penguins are still losing 2-1.
No way.
And everyone decided to clear the bench to congratulate them, and now they're losing 4-1. So keep it fresh, Pittsburgh.
Terrible.
Well,
Well, we're going to talk
One
more about
guy.
Pittsburgh later. We're going to have a
Right.
huge section about the Pittsburgh Penguins. So
if you're
Don't get too excited.
He
if you're a
won't.
Bruins fan like Cass and you feel down, low, in a rough spot, just remember
bro.
you're not a Penguins fan.
Yeah.
It's-
could be a
That's
Chicago
a worse
fan.
place.
Be a Predators fan.
Well,
Who thought
I
they were
would
gonna be in the
maybe
playoffs?
argue both of those teams have better futures ahead.
It's
And,
going to be
Uh,
it's going to be rough for Pittsburgh. But we'll
gonna be
talk about
May.
it. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Speaking of players that you hated growing up, unless you were a Red Wings fan, you hated Pavel Datsyuk. But today, or not today, it was yesterday, sometime this week, he signed a one-day contract after being announced as a NHL Hall of Famer, and he retires with Detroit. So, I mean, it's fitting.
It's about time.
It's the same thing
Is it though?
as
Like he should have signed a one-day contract with Arizona. That was the last team he was on.
but it's not based on the last.
Is
team
that
he
is
played
that the
with.
team that you remember him on?
Me? Yes, because it was a salary dump. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that is not and the team doesn't exist anymore. So where's he going to go? Utah? He didn't play with that team. They're a whole new franchise.
They're gonna hang the
Utah-
banner right next to Shane Dones in the dumpster.
That
Sorry, Cat.
that
he would
ended
get
up
up
somewhere.
before Shane Doan.
That's picking up what I'm putting down. Thanks, Cat.
It
Good.
would
Coyote
be
Group.
within the organization's infrastructure to retire someone like Datsuk's number before Shane Doan. It would just
It'll
be
be-
like perfect for the story arc.
Shane Doan, Marullo, then Datsuk.
I'm just glad Marullo's retired from the NHL as an owner. Thanks.
But more about Datsuk, like his shootout he was the first one I can remember having like a legit shootout move. Patrick Kane ended up doing his little start fast, pump the brakes right in front of the goalie, do 50 dekes, and then put it through. Who was another one?
Kuznetsov, who's no longer in the league.
Kuznetsov's slow paced,
I feel
whatever.
like Kane was too, right? Is
Yeah.
Kuzi had a sick goal in the KHL, which we're not talking about, but that was
Cross goal, right?
sweet. Yeah,
Oh my
that was
God.
really cool. Good on
But
Datsuk, though.
That's what I remember him for. Sorry.
Jeez, the females
Yeah.
in the chat are hating
It's-
me
it's-
tonight. I love it.
I love it too. It's great.
Kucherov also had another good one where that was I think his move that was like the first we ever saw in the NHL was the whole pretend to deke, but let it just slide through the 5-hole.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But
I like
Datsuk,
that.
Datsuk was a master with the puck, and so props to him. Congrats. We can
What's-
stop talking
Drop.
about him.
What took him so long to get inducted? I mean, dude had a great career. It was an illustrious career for hockey.
I think it was his first year.
Was it?
Ineligible.
Is it?
Almost positive.
You
It was
probably know
what?
better than I do.
Because he didn't officially retired because he was on it. I'm pretty sure he was on LTIR and just collecting the money while he could. You know what I mean?
Good for him then.
Pretty sure.
No. He went.
Like he never physically played a game for the Coyotes.
He went to.
Where's our fact checker?
Uh,
At the Wiggles
Hell,
concert.
Amanda.
SKA. Is that what is?
Oh, I
SKA?
see. So he ended up in the KHL then.
Yeah, he went
Okay,
to
that makes sense.
KHL,
Amanda.
and that's why he's signing the one.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I think when he
Stars
went to the
have scored too.
KHL, I don't think it was that he couldn't get a contract here. I think he wanted to play in front of.
No, he
whoever
chose
he
to
had
go
over
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Oh.
why he signs the one-day contract. That's why it's taken so long because it's kind of like Yager. Yager still
Makes
has yet
sense.
to be inducted.
Oh,
right?
True. Yes.
Speaking about taking so long, Jesse, he finally made his San Jose Sharks debut.
Oh, it's about time, right? So Yaroslav Askarov made his Sharks debut on Thursday. It was a loss, unfortunately. They lost to the St. Louis Blues in a shootout. I don't know if you guys saw this, though. Did you see the blunder that Askarov had on the first goal? I'm going to show you it
No.
right now. Look at this. He comes out of the net. He goes to play the puck behind the net and then flubs it, passes it along, and then a goal against. Just terrible for the first year goaltender for the San Jose Sharks. But I mean, he did look good in that game. But made 29 saves. He did end up losing though, unfortunately. Shame.
I wonder how long he'll stay up because I have been scouting him for fantasy reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the vibe is he's not going to have a permanent stint with the NHL team this season.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest arguments for why that's a good thing for him and the Sharks is that you want these young guys like Askarov to experience a winning environment. And the Barracuda, I think is their
The
AHL
San Jose
affiliate.
Barracuda, yes.
Yeah, they are doing really well in the AHL. So let the kid win and feel like experience what winning feels like. Because if you stay in San Jose with the Sharks, your
It's
whole
gonna be,
morale
it's
just
gonna be,
tanks.
the morale is definitely gonna be not so good. That team needs to figure out what they're doing. I know that they're working on things. I know that they've got Celebrini, but
I think they're climbing out. I think they're climbing out of the pit. It seems so far-fetched right now, but there are teams that have further to go.
for sure, yeah, absolutely. Waiver claims, Cass. What do you got?
Yeah, we had a waiver claim. Edmonton claimed Kasperi Kapanen off of waivers from St. Louis.
Clapping
They
in cheeks.
subsequently put Victor Arvidsson on the IR. So Kasperi Kapanen is playing on their second line where Arvidsson was. I mean, kind of perfect timing for Edmonton. You know, it's a low risk, high reward situation for them, and they could always just dump this kid back on waivers whenever Arvidsson does come back.
I think he's a good player. I remember him being a pretty prominent player in Pittsburgh when he was over there. He's got 209 points in 470 career NHL games. He's played with Toronto, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and now he's I think that he can make a lineup. I just don't understand why he hasn't been able to stay at least in the bottom six.
It's weird. Sometimes I feel like players either need to be in the top six or that's it. Like some players I feel like can't adjust to that bottom six, 12, 15 minutes on ice compared to the 18, 20 minutes.
Understandable. Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely heard of a similar situation in New York with the Rangers who were a guy who, I think it was Mika Zibanejad actually, whose play time just kept going down and down and down. And it's obviously because his performance wasn't good, but I get where you're coming from with that. JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks. He is taking an indefinite leave from the team for personal reasons. That is all the team has said. GM Patrick Alvin said the team's focus is making sure Miller knows, quote, the entire organization is here to support him. Miller is 31. He has 6 goals and 10 assists in 17 games for the Canucks. He was second on the team in points, right behind captain Quinn Hughes for 18. He had a really great season last year. I hope he's able to get out of this rut. He's a great player. I loved him on the Rangers. I wish him the very best because the Canucks are not the same without guys like JT Miller.
Demko. They need Demko.
They need Demko. They're being plagued with a lot of injuries right now too. I mean, Besser's still out, Demko's still out, JT Miller's on that indefinite leave, so they're not doing too hot on the injury front, and they definitely need those guys back.
I did see a tweet about this. I don't know if it was a parody. I don't know. I can't remember who it was, how official it was, but something about his shoulder. He has some shoulder injury, and he hasn't been playing like normal. So rather than going to IR or something like that, he's taking time away because it's not that he can't play. It's that he doesn't like how he's playing.
I can understand that.
And I think it'll be interesting to see if he goes into the player assistance program for something, but because he hasn't already, I doubt he does.
They indicated it seemed like it was going to be a short-term thing.
Yeah.
So this happened on Tuesday, so we'll see if he's back by Christmas. I think he might be.
If it is a mental thing, like I'm not playing as good as I want to be playing, do you think it's a selfish move? Because they can't put him on IR, so he's taking up cap.
I don't think it's... Go ahead, Cass.
I was gonna say, I think it's selfish. Like, you should have to play through this stuff. We were just talking, what you'll hear later on the interview, how Eric Carlson's playing through it, trying to find his game. Like, why shouldn't this guy? Like, what's different?
Some guys just need that reset. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If I'm having a bad mental health day, I'm calling out of work. Sorry.
But
I
pretended-
agree, but at that point, go on this player's assistance. You know what I mean?
Get on IR whatever way you can. Otherwise, you're just stealing money from the team.
You smell that? It stinks like Robin Leonard right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Leonard's at
all
least
due
on
respect to
IR.
this guy, all due respect to him. Well, no, didn't they say,
they're not
"Oh, we're going
paying
to pay
that.
him. We're going to pay him, but he's not going to be on IR and he's not going to count against the roster."
Well, he's not going to
He's
count
not
against
even
the cap,
on the
yeah.
LTIR.
yeah, so like,
He's just rogue.
whatever's wrong with him, I do hope he gets better because he's a huge part for that team if they
Sure.
want to make a run that they can make.
Kat, if I had the ability to call out for 6 weeks, I 100% would. 100% would.
Or you just quit.
I was-
You just quit the job.
Don't tempt
I
me.
Then,
No.
then you get 6 weeks unlimited.
If I
No.
was paid, I'd be on a cruise ship for 6 weeks straight. Who the hell is?
You get paid
With-
medical leave here in Washington. Very nice.
5 days here.
You get 90 here.
Jesus Christ. Devin Levi has been sent to AHL Rochester, Lindy Ruff said this week. He's had 7 games played, only 2 wins, 3.95 goals against average, and an .870 save percentage. He was supposed to be the future in the net there. He was acquired in the Sam Reinhart trade, I believe. Obviously not working out the way they hoped it, but at least Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has stepped up and he seems to be doing well. Not great, but well.
Well enough.
So
He's keeping
well
some of
enough.
my fantasy. He's keeping one of my fantasy teams going. I really
So-
messed up and didn't get a good goalie. So UPL, you're my guy.
Yeah, Buffalo's so interesting. They're just constantly in this perpetual rebuild-ish state.
I don't like the Dallas Cowboys.
No.
No.
I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just they've got the talent. Lindy Ruff is an issue. You shouldn't have hired. They need to go young. They need to get fresh minds in. I don't
Did they
think
do a Lindy Ruff
Buffalo's-
bobblehead?
Well, I was about to kind of talk about that. So I was watching the stream last night. Buffalo played in Anaheim, and the color commentator, after the Lindy Ruff bobblehead sponsorship ad went up, the color commentator responded with, "Really?" And I agree. Really? You're going to incentivize fans with Lindy Ruff bobbleheads? Like, he didn't do anything for you then. He's not doing anything for you now. Anyways.
Yes, Larry, we know. Thanks.
Speaking of sales, sure.
Oh, is
bobblehead.
Larry related to you?
Bob-
That's why he's
Yeah, that's my
butthurt
dad.
about the
That's my dad.
Cowboys.
Uh,
Sorry, sir.
the,
Fly Eagles fly. Anyway, go ahead, Ethan.
the Utah Hockey Club, they set some records last week when they finally unveiled their jerseys to the public for sale. They became the second best day in NHL history for in-arena sales, and then became the best for regular season game day sales. The number, I was trying to pull it up, but
I
that's
unfortunately
just how
don't
much
have
the
it.
Jerseys are.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have it. They did sell a lot, though.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
That line was
He
like
sold out, yeah.
out the door.
Which I don't blame him. My friend who's going to Utah,
I want
with me, for the game. He's gonna get one because it's gonna be a collector's item.
You're not
For
going to get one?
sure. No,
Come on.
I don't have that kind of money
Come
to just
on.
spend on random jerseys.
You are live on Facebook. So you could ask a family member.
We're gonna start a GoFundMe. But here's a good question for this topic before we
Mhm.
move on. If you were buying one of these 1-year deal Utah jerseys, would you get a player jersey
No.
or a blank jersey?
You
No,
got to go blank.
I would go blank. Yeah,
Blank.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I usually like having player names on the back. I like having the numbers on the side because it just feels more, I guess, real. But with this, it kind of seems like it's a collector's item, like you said. I don't think it would. I mean, maybe it might have more value if it had a player name on it, but I'd be a lot better and happier with having no player name on the back. Kat says they're only offering blanks, no customization.
Oh, it's smart from a business standpoint. But props to them. I mean, to get the second best day in NHL history, including playoffs, that's crazy. Especially knowing that it's only blank jerseys. And then on top of that, it's the best non-playoff counted arena sales day.
Larry says,
I've said it the whole time. I'll interrupt you for talking
that's
about
fine.
my dad's
no,
comment.
he I want to say, yeah, he's right. I agree with him.
I think, you know, the non-specific player aspect makes it a really crazy stat. Yeah.
I get where you're coming from with that. Go ahead.
I thought they had players' jerseys and they sold out of them. That's what I read. Anyone with players, that they sold out of those immediately, and all they had left was blanks. Any players won't be available until February. I do know that this was like you said, the second best day in NHL history for arena sales. The first best was Game 5 of the Stanley Cup that Vegas won.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Another new franchise there, so that makes sense.
All fan bases that the NHL has drained all their money from. Yeah.
Dude, that Utah fan base, they've come out. They have
got money.
Dude, they've shown up. They've shown up.
They have, and the team hasn't really been doing as well as they were in the beginning of the season. I think they have a bright future there, though. If they're going to have a guy, an owner, that's going to allow them to make the moves that they want, I think they're going to be a competitive team in the next, I want to say 3 years, but definitely the next 5.
He seems like he can be related to Elon Musk, and I still get creeped out when he's in an interview and he keeps licking his moistened lips. It's
I have
weird.
not watched an interview with him, so I will not do that moving forward. Good to know.
Well, now we get
to
to
the next week.
Now we get to the segment where Cass tells me how much I was wrong.
I was right. You were wrong. Mr. Ryan Reeves has been suspended 5 games, just like I predicted. Not 2, 5, for his boarding on Darnell. Oh no, what was it? It was
illegal check to the head,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
On Darnell Nurse. Nurse is said to be out between 5 and 10 days from a head injury because he principal point of contact was the head. Look at that. Bang. Oh.
Yeah, that was a rough hit, dude.
Okay. Honestly, if this is not Ryan Reeves, it's a player who has never had an issue in the league. Is it still 5 games?
No.
I would say
Ryan
2.
Reeves has a history. That's why it's 5 games.
Right.
He has
That's
a
crazy. I don't like Ryan Reeves as a player, but I still think it's crazy that they
I don't
just
mind
go
him. He
5
knows
games because
he knows what his job is. Like, you know what I mean? It's like if Brad Marchand did it. Like, I would
that's what I was
expect
going to
him to
ask.
get a harsher punishment than like a Jason Robinson because of his history.
I mean, this is the 4th time that he's been suspended. He received 2 games in the 2021 playoffs, 1 game in the 2020 playoffs, and 3 games in 2016. So the history is there. That's kind of where I was going with last week when I said it was going to be above 5. I'm surprised it's not 5, I guess, still, but you know, I think I was at 6 is what I said last week. So wasn't too far off like Ethan was.
Yeah. Ethan, what did I say? Oh, that's right, 5. Okay. Anyway. That's enough. I can't do this anymore.
I just
Poor
think
kid.
I just think it's to use the history. Like, just make the rule book the rule book.
Oh, it's
if you
like
do
drunk
this, you're
driving.
out.
If you get one, you get a certain penalty. If you do it again, you get a harsher penalty. If you do it a third time, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty common across society,
Like, yeah.
Ethan.
Ethan, pick up a book. Jesus.
Speaking of which, Jesse, our first guest ever was actually Ben Guy.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we
Yeah.
did have him. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to segue that in right there because it was the perfect moment. Moving on.
The perfect
I
moment
think
for
it's,
that.
I think it's you, Jesse.
It sure is. So, Callie Yarncroke of the Toronto Maple Leafs had a groin and sports hernia surgery on Monday. He's going to be out month to month. The 33-year-old forward, he hasn't played a game yet this season. He traveled to New York last week to meet with a specialist after his initial rehabilitation process was not yielding the results that he was looking for. Yarncroke was slowed by the injury during training camp and missed several practices. He did not have a point in 2 preseason games. Yarncroke is a guy that I remember from Nashville. I liked him a lot in Nashville. I think the league is better with guys like him, so hopefully he's able to get back soon.
I feel like 3 or 4 years ago, he was a name that everyone was hoping to get at the trade deadline.
Yeah, yeah. He was a pretty prominent player in Nashville. I watch a lot of their games. I like the team, so I remember him coming up a lot for goals, for defensive plays. I remember one time when I used voice to text and it spelled it YARN croak. So, that was funny.
Speaking of injuries, sorry,
Yes.
that was really funny to me. Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He has been moved to IR for a foot injury. It does look like they've given a timeline of 4 weeks for the injury, and it got me thinking when I saw this that there are some players that could be playing in the Four Nations tournament or could be up for consideration for the Four Nations tournament. Could we see some players take a little more time off than necessary for that reason? Which, if that's the case, I think it's terrible. But
I think the primary focus should be the team that you're getting paid by. I don't know if these guys get paid for these international tournaments, but I mean, I also can understand this is a huge deal for these guys. They haven't had a best on best tournament like this in a long time. I guess I can't be mad either way you go.
Yeah, I think in the Olympics they get paid by condoms.
What?
I said what I said.
What?
The amount of rubbers they burn through those.
Oh, I get what you. Okay, gotcha.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of these guys stay in signal for the next year, trying to work their magic over there.
Sponsored by Durex. Jack Campbell. He was in the NHL.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Before you go to Jack Campbell,
Go.
One thing I will say about Seth Jones, which is interesting, is he leads the NHL in ice time per game. If you look at NHL stats on their website, you'll see Zach Werenski is slightly ahead by 3 seconds, but 2 extra games played. So, Seth Jones. Dudes on the ice all the time. So sure, take 4 weeks.
They need him in Chicago to be on the ice anyway. Yeah, right, exactly. They need him over there. So it makes sense to me as to why he's averaging that much ice time.
Yeah.
Brent Seabrook's coming back.
They need
Poop
somebody.
Soup. Talk about poop soup.
So, Jack Campbell, he has been cleared to return from the NHLPA Player Assistance Program, and then the Detroit Red Wings put him on waivers to send him down to the AHL, probably to get a conditioning stint going. He entered the program on October 4th. That was to receive care indefinitely. There wasn't really too much detail regarding that. But he will now be eligible to come back should the Detroit Red Wings need a guy. But, I mean, Cam Talbot's been lighting it up there for them between the pipes.
Yeah, they're not going to miss him. It's, I think it's just a drawn out, embarrassing.
He's getting league minimum. I mean, I hope that he was able to get whatever he had going on sorted it in check. I assume that he did. That's why they cleared him. A league minimum goalie as a backup who has some sort of tenure in the league, I don't hate it for them.
Yeah. Good on him. Make the money.
Who's next? Moving on. Ethan, it's you, boy.
Is it me?
It is, sir.
Yes. NHL referee Mitch Dunning. He was taken to the hospital after a collision with Josh Manson in the Avalanche at Flyers game, and he was stretchered off. It was kind of a scary scene.
It looked bad, yeah.
Oh, you got it up. Nice.
I usually do.
What?
Yeah, I'm sure you do. It was scarier than it looked scarier than
Yes.
it actually was.
Yeah.
They took him to a hospital, and it was all precautionary. He was cognizant, speaking, everything's good. I'm sure he'll be back on the ice shortly.
Yeah, he did get blindsided by that hit. I thought maybe his head had hit the ice, and that was kind of why they were a little bit concerned about what happened. Manson, obviously, 100% unintentional. Definitely didn't mean to do that. Scary collision, regardless, when you see a guy who was unprepared for a hit, regardless of, he's a referee, he's not expecting it, but it's scary to see a guy getting stretchered off the ice like that.
And those players skate so hard. So I used to ref hockey in the DFW area, and we have a league tier.
Mhm.
A is the highest, and in the A League, especially in one city, you're going to see a lot of former NHL players. And so I was reffing a game in that city at that level. Several former NHL players playing on the ice. I'm not a fast dude. I can't skate super fast. I can't get out of the way of former NHL players. And I took a hit from two guys chasing a puck down the boards, had no time to get out of the way. And what I tell people is when you fall back, you know how it's like slow motion?
Mhm.
You see the
You
world.
see it all
go.
happening. Yep.
Not this. When I got hit, it was boom, boom. It was face up to hitting the ice. And somehow I didn't have a concussion. But if that was former NHL players, getting a hit like that by a current NHL player, that's crazy. It's you can't imagine it.
How many games is he going to be suspended, Ethan?
He's going to get 10.
Does he have history? Does he have history?
Don't brag, Ethan. I used to ref Jordy Ben.
As Ethan mentioned, neurological signs were fine. They're expecting him to be back relatively soon. It seemed from what I read, definitely a lot scarier from the visual aspect of it. It's a good thing that he's doing okay. It seems like.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing okay,
This team is not, right, Kess?
They're on a 2-game heater.
Oh, now they are. Now they are. Maybe earlier this week.
1-0 is one of the heaters.
For some reason, Don Sweeney didn't want to fire himself this week.
Yeah.
So he took the next best step and he fired Jim Montgomery. In 84 games with the Bruins, Jim Montgomery only lost in regulation 41 times. He's the third Jack Adams winner that Neely and Don Sweeney have fired, basically, for their ineptitudes, because I don't even know what Cam Neely does in that office besides throw water bottles when the Bruins lose. I don't really understand it. It is being reported that Jim Montgomery and Don Sweeney were talking to an extension, but they couldn't come to agreement on one, which also played into it. And then the first 20 games of the seasons where the Bruins have been subpar kind of sealed the deal. But when does it become Don Sweeney's and Cam Neely's fault? Like,
It should be now.
obviously,
Last
I think
season.
it should be now too. Like I said before we started recording, like I don't feel that Don Sweeney's eggs are in the Bruins basket right now. I feel like half a split between Team Canada and the Bruins, and I think it's bullshit. And Seabass has to go away. In my opinion.
If that was
I don't even know what a
provable,
president does.
if it was provable that Sweeney was putting more effort into Team Canada than the Bruins should fire him immediately.
See,
They should
the way I
fire him
look at it-
anyways.
it doesn't have to be more effort. It has to be any effort. Because if you're getting paid by the Bruins to do a job during the NHL season and you're not putting all your effort into it, end of story. End of friggin' story. But, that's a slippery slope when you get into that and all that stuff.
But
So-
what's sad is like the Bruins could fire Sweeney today. And what are you going to do? Go and try and get Jim Montgomery back?
No, I don't think that
No.
would happen.
You're not going to do that. It's like a done deal. So It's crazy that the guy who has, I saw a stat, the best record for an original 6 NHL team in history just got fired.
And
And
he
ahead.
had the best regular season record 2 years ago ever in the NHL.
Yeah, but like his whole career with Boston is the best
It is.
record for a coach for an original 6 team.
I just don't get it. I heard on the radio years ago that basically the Jacobs family, who owns the Bruins, basically just wants the team to get 2 home games in the first round of the playoffs so they can make some money, and that's all they really care about as an owner, which kind of sucks.
That
That's
makes
Jerry
sense.
Jonas.
Yeah. See, Cass thinks before the show I suggested the Cowboys are like the Bruins, and he denied it. But here we are.
I just don't understand. Like 2 years ago, Sweeney made the right moves. Like I said the other week, getting Garnett Hathaway, getting Tyler Bertuzzi, getting Dmitry Orlov. That team was stacked. That team choked, without a doubt. They were up 3-1 against Florida. They blew it. They blew it. Last year they won the series. They were outmatched by Florida. I think we can all agree.
Agreed. Yeah.
I didn't have a problem signing Elias Lindholm. I kind of had a problem with Zadorov. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if the guy's still in the league lead or minor penalties at this point, like we talked about in other season earlier episodes. I just want to know when it becomes see you later, Sweeney, see you later, Neely. I don't get it. I really don't.
ASAP. He's been so spoiled by team-friendly contracts that great players were willing to sign, and those players are now old. You've got
they're gone, most of them.
A couple left. And once they're gone, if Sweeney's still there, the Bruins are screwed for the next 5 years.
Well, you figure like the Marchands, the Bergerons, the Krejcis, they were taking team-friendly deals. The Pasternaks, the McAvoys, the Swaymans, they're not taking any.
No, nobody's doing that.
I think that's what he's getting at, though, is that by this point, you were able to build a solid, ridiculous roster for relatively cheap per guy, I guess. And now that you've got these guys wanting these big contracts, what do?
The other thing is, like, you look at some of these longer contracts that Don Sweeney signed.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Pileski, David Backes, freaking. I would even throw in trading for Andrew Peeke in there. Korpisalo has been good. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's another $3 million. Like, his money management and signing people, aging veterans to these big contracts is just ridiculous. So
if the Bruins don't fire him by the end of the season, I'll be shocked. Or the Bruins will somehow get their act together in a crazy way, and that saves his job.
Even so, like, they can't make a move at the deadline. They have no money. They're not going to win a cup with the team they have. They won't. Even if Swayman gets his shit together and play like he did last year, they're not enough to get by a Florida still, or a New York, or a New Jersey at this point. New Jersey would be way too fast for this team.
And then Jim Montgomery becomes the fall guy, like the worst fall guy ever. And I know where you're about to go, Cass, so let me just say this real quick. This tweet, I thought, summed this up perfectly. Imagine being Jim Montgomery and being, by wins and losses, the best coach an Original Six team has ever had and getting fired. And it's the second stupidest reason you get fired. And it's perfect. It's like, dang. The guy, whatever team he goes to, if it's a young team especially, they're going to excel. And I think he should go to Utah.
So
go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say is I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Jesse.
So,
I have to figure out
before we move on from this, I just want to bring this up because I saw this stat on Twitter. In June of 2023, the Jack Adams finalists were Dave Hackstall, Lindy Ruff, and Jim Montgomery. And all three of those guys are now no longer employed by the team that they were working for at that time.
It's
Wild.
Crazy. What I was going to say is 20 games into the season, it's obvious something wasn't getting through to the players. I don't know. Unfortunately, like, I don't know if Montgomery got stale or whatever, but they weren't playing for him the way they were the last 2 years either. So I don't think he should get off scotch-free. The power play was the worst in the league. The penalty kill was the worst in the league. Their defense sucked. So that doesn't fall on the general manager. And all that doesn't fall on the players either. So Chris Kelly was running their power play at that point, and I don't think he had a minute of power play time at all on his NHL docket. So
Yeah. Well,
So with Montgomery gone, who's the next head coach to go? And I put Pittsburgh, Nashville, or Detroit as options as well.
it's going to be whatever team wants Jim Montgomery. I think.
Detroit.
I wouldn't be surprised. I personally, if I were in charge of any sort of decisions in Pittsburgh, I would probably get rid of Sully. I like the guy. He's had a lot of success with that team. I just don't think he's able to do it anymore with them. He's a great coach. I would love to have him on any one of my teams. But I think his time in Pittsburgh should be done.
Yeah, but
idea.
it's Nashville's got to be the one. It like for next coach, not most deserving coach to go, but next coach to go. Nashville they're ready to nuke the world.
I mean, they should be too.
Yeah.
They the new Edmonton where they're gonna have 4 coaches in like 3 years or whatever. Like, I just don't get it with them. I think it's gonna be.
Aren't you guys close too?
Oh, you say Detroit?
I mean,
Are we close to what?
Nashville beat the Jets tonight, 4-1. Look at that.
Yeah, there we go.
Aren't you guys close to having like 4 coaches in 5 years too?
Stars
this
or
would be the-
Bruins?
This
The
would be
Bru-
the third coach in 4 years or 5
So
years.
you're almost there.
So the difference is we had success, and Don Sweeney just has to cover his ass. Like
True.
they fired Bruce Cassidy after they lost in Game 7 of round 1.
Yeah, that was a
And they
stupid
didn't even
move.
they didn't even really tell him. They told it through the media, and he was pissed. And he had
Like-
a job the next day and won the Stanley Cup. Fuck 'em.
Props to
Right.
Nashville for the win against the Jets. The Jets are going to fall. They're not going to be as good as they've been the whole time.
I'm very
But
upset because I benched Soros in my fantasy league. So I'm pretty pissed off about that.
Nashville's
UPL.
just teetering. They are teetering on blowing it up or not. And if they do the blow it up option, the easiest way is what Sweeney just did, even though that was stupid. The coach goes first. But for Nashville, their problem is this chemistry thing, and what does bringing in a new coach solve? But
Nothing.
it's Anyways,
We got some pretty major PWHL news I want to talk about real quick.
Sure.
Ethan, why don't you take the first point here?
yeah. So we've got some rule things. The PWHL, they are not strangers to setting rule precedents that are not seen in professional hockey. They have added the major penalty and game misconduct for all illegal checks to the head. Well, that was already part of NHL rulebook. And then as well as pulling hair or grabbing a chin strap, neck guard, or cage. I do believe that is unheard of.
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe if there's a mullet in the AHL and someone yanks on it, I wonder what the rule is on that.
I don't think making that sort of rule is unreasonable.
I don't think so at all.
I think that's a pretty good call.
Well, okay, Jesse, you don't care about the NFL, but Cass, you
I
do.
don't.
In the NFL, if you've got dreads hanging out of your helmet, you can pull on that all day long. Do you disagree with that rule? Like
Yes.
that there's not a rule for it?
That's basically a freaking horse collar.
Yeah, but it's not because it's part of the body, right?
Fucking yoink.
I don't know. I mean,
Hey.
I guess it makes sense for a PWHL standpoint, you know.
Yeah. That way it's in
women
writing,
typically
so
have
no one
longer
can
hair.
disagree. You know?
Yeah.
They also
chin,
came out.
chin strap. Good luck on grabbing that with hockey gloves on.
PWHL also are starting to enforce a no escape rule. Basically, what happens if a penalty is called, players on the ice have to stay on the ice for the face-off. So if you have tired bodies out there for 30 seconds while they're trying to chase the puck, they also have to stay out there for the first face-off.
I'm intrigued by that one. I actually like
Love
that
it.
one, and I think that they should bring that into the NHL.
It'll
It's gonna
be,
more offense.
let's see how it looks like
Yeah.
when implemented.
Well, I think it's kind of similar to the icing rule, right? I mean, there's really not much of a difference in that. I just don't see any sort of issue. Do you?
Is it for just any penalty or penalty shot? Because I thought I saw it was penalty shot.
No, why would it matter if the players are on the ice?
That's why I was clarifying.
Yeah, it's say someone gets a tripping penalty and the 4 players that have to, who aren't going to the box have to stay out for the ensuing.
It says.
Is it for the whole 2 minutes?
No. So it's just
face-off
for the
for the
first
next
face-off.
game.
Yeah.
Or until they can switch.
Yeah, so it says requires players on a team that take a penalty, which leads to to penalty time on the clock, to remain on the ice until after the faceoff that resumes action. So
would this be solving the issue of players take penalties to get their team off the ice for a change?
I think so, because now they're
Does
still going to
that
have
happen?
to. I mean,
I don't think that happens enough. I think it's just more to generate more. I feel like a lot of those games were low scoring last year, and I think they're just trying to come up with ways to get offense.
Yeah.
Tom says he agrees with me.
out there.
Tom agrees with me. The Capitals fan. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you. Bring it over to the
Tom.
NHL.
This isn't the brag you think it is, Jesse.
What other
Just kidding,
changes?
Tom. I'm just kidding. You're great.
A coach may challenge a puck over the glass call, but if they're wrong, an additional penalty will be called, and then they'll be playing 5-on-3.
Oh, I like that one
I
too.
like this. I
That'll
like
be
this.
sick.
I like that one too.
They should bring that over to the NHL
Yes.
as well.
Yes, and high sticking. It was on the docket.
Yeah, why did
For
I thought they
changes.
did? I thought that was going to be official, but I guess it
didn't
hasn't
go
happened
through.
yet. Weird.
Yeah.
Jesse, last PWHL note.
So this is actually a pretty big one, and I like this a lot. The PWHL Takeover Tour. So there's going to be 8 regular season games in different cities. They're going to be stopping in Seattle, Vancouver, Denver, Buffalo, Detroit, St. Louis, Quebec City, and Raleigh. They're going to be playing all these games in these really awesome arenas that the NHL teams are playing in. And then there's this stat that I saw while I was looking up notes for this. The PWHL game in Vancouver that is happening on January 8th between the Montreal Victory. My French is terrible. Don't at me.
French is terrible. It's not on you. It's on
My French, but also yes. The Montreal Victory and the Toronto Scepters. That game sold out already in 2 days.
Wow.
Jesus. So you're not going to that one. You're going to go to the Seattle one?
I'm gonna try to hit up the Seattle one if I can. If the tickets are relatively reasonable, I think that would be pretty cool. But there was some conversation in the Freeze the Puck Hockey Discord about this too. Do you think that this is a precursor to trying to do some expansion teams, or what do you guys think about that?
Well, they do
think-
plan on adding 2 more teams
Right.
next season.
But I don't think some of these teams or some of these cities are a little bit too far west, in my opinion. I think Buffalo and maybe Buffalo, Detroit, and Raleigh might be the next potential places in my mind for some sort of expansion, because everyone's on the east side of the country. I can't picture seeing Montreal, New York, Boston. I mean, the furthest west is Minnesota. Coming over to Seattle. That would be such a long trip.
I could see Quebec City getting a team.
Yeah,
maybe
them too.
shutting them
They
up
need
above
one.
The NHL for a while,
Yeah, because they're not going to get an NHL team ever again.
No.
But a PWHL team. Maybe.
So Tom's asking how big Rogers Arena is. If you give me 2 seconds to look it up, I will get you that number. It is
just let
19.
Amanda do it.
Amanda, it is 19,700 people. That's a pretty substantial amount of people, Amanda. Yes, like it is.
I think
That's how many kids I have.
I think your mention of West versus East is an interesting point, because if you're going to expand an already small league, you want to keep it relatively local. Otherwise, you're going to have crazy travel differences.
Right.
People are going to whatever. Then you have to look at cities where there is a space to host games. And your first thought would be, well, any team with an NHL team could host their games.
Not
The
necessarily.
scheduling
though, yeah.
on that is crazy,
You also
Now
have to take into
taking-
consideration, though, that most of those arenas also, during the NHL season, are also hosting NBA games, too.
So take into account those cities that do share the arena for NBA. There's no way you're fitting in a PWHL schedule into that arena. You then have to look at, does the city have another place like a
AHL.
Mullet Arena, or what'd you say?
You know, AHL arena.
AHL
No,
Arena.
usually-
Yeah.
AHL only plays Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, and most of them, if they do have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, one of them's away. So I could see, like, obviously Providence is too close compared to Boston, but, like, I could see them having a team in an AHL arena, like in a San Jose or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, I don't think it's too crazy to try and expand.
Yeah.
I think it's like anything
No,
else.
it's
in concerts
possible.
around
And
the way technology is and
I
stuff.
mean, also over here too, there's 2 WHL arenas in the Seattle vicinity where people could play too. Those arenas are a lot smaller than, you know, Climate Pledge or Rogers Arena, but those are places that they could play if you go that route with the minor league arenas.
But like,
Plus
if
you have
you're,
different-
I was just gonna say, if you're in like the Denver area, you're a big Avs fan. Well, they share the arena with the Nuggets. Is there an arena nearby that?
yeah, where
a
the Colorado
PWHL
Eagles play.
I don't know
Are
how
they in
AHL
Denver?
they're not in Denver, but they're close. I think about an hour
They're
away.
close enough. I mean?
Oh, okay.
The other thing too is, like, I'm a big rugby fan, and a lot of times when rugby's on TV, they crowd the fans in one section, so it looks like there's a lot of fans. I think they'll try and use smaller arenas so it looks like it's more packed than if they go to an arena with 14,000 seats and they only fill 5. You know what I mean?
Well, what's
It's
crazy
better
is
to
they
have a
go to
packed
these
barn.
they go to those in NHL arenas and they pack them out.
I mean, that's
It's-
they did it in Quebec at Montreal. They're going to do it in
And
Vancouver,
Toronto.
in Toronto
They did it
too.
last season.
Yeah. So I mean, to be selling out places like the Bell Center, like 21,000 people, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I see a bright future for this league. It'll be really awesome for them to get these games going. It's going to spark some interest. And just so everyone here is aware, the 2024-25 PAWHL season starts next Saturday, a week from today. So that'll be cool to see.
And we'll hopefully, maybe we've reached out for some interviews.
That'd
So
be cool.
if you're a PWHL franchise, have someone on, because I have some questions. I think one interesting thing before we segue, it's a very successful league, and the WNBA, they just got hot this year because
Yep.
of some personnel that joined the league.
Mm-hmm.
But for the PWHL, they haven't had big names. They haven't had that draw factor, but they've done amazing in their ticket sales. And their only issue that I've seen is players seem to not want to stick around. The personnel is the issue rather than the success of the league being the issue, if that makes sense. So that's a question I'd have.
Let's move right along to injuries, guys.
yes, sir.
Injuries? Oh yeah, I'll take
Man,
the first.
you're up first.
I'm not gonna try and do it. Accent or impersonation. North Carolina sucks, and Freddie Anderson is set to have some surgery to clean his knee out, which sounds painful.
Terrible. That
but
sounds
also sounds
awful.
like a bunch of BS. He's going to be out 8 to 12 weeks, and yeah,
Another
Freddie Anderson just needs to retire.
Just another injury to another goaltender for the Carolina Hurricanes. And it's like these guys can't get a break. Kochetkov was injured a little bit earlier in the month. I think he's come back since, which is why they put Anderson on the IR. But these guys just, I mean, they're getting hurt left and right. And the team's doing very well. I'm pretty sure they're still first in the
They're scoring goals.
They are scoring goals. Yes. And I don't think they're getting too many goals against, too. Their defense is pretty good, so it's not surprising to see that. They're doing a lot better than I think anybody, particularly anybody here, was anticipating in the offseason.
Damn it.
They are one goalie from being contenders.
They are second in the Metropolitan Division. New Jersey is a point ahead. But New Jersey also has 3 games more.
Askarov should have gone there. If
Yeah,
they had
well,
Askarov, oh gosh.
that's a whole other conversation.
Speaking about the Central Division, the best team to watch, the Washington Capitals have lost their superstar.
The Central
They are
Division?
not a part of the Central
I
Division.
say Central, I meant
You did.
Metro. Sorry.
I can attest.
Oops. They would still be the best team in the Central Division, just for the record.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ovi has fractured his left tibia. He will be out 4 to 6 weeks, and he scored 15 goals in 18 games. So we are putting the risk of not breaking that record this year on the table with him being injured.
Ooh,
But at the
I was
same
gonna
time-
ask. I was gonna ask if everyone agreed with what you just said.
At the same time, I heard he was skating today. So
Yeah,
might
I
not
heard
be
that
much of
too.
a fracture.
So, my understanding is that he was seen at the Wizards Celtics game last night, and he wasn't wearing any sort of cast or something at all. So pretty impressive for Ovi. The dude just doesn't break. I mean, this is gonna be his longest injury stint in his career. So that's a little crazy to me, considering how many games he's played.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cass makes the statement. He's not hitting Gretzky's 894.
Whoa!
this season.
I asked if it's gonna put the record at risk.
We'll
That's
review
what
the
I
tape.
said. You can review it. You won't spend the time.
I don't think so, because he's about to get 4 to 6 weeks off to rest. He's going to come back healthy. Then he will have 2 weeks off during the Four Nations tournament, because he will not be competing in that. I think he still hits it this season.
Tom says yes, he is practicing, and no braces, no boot, or anything.
No
Russian
skate, he's just
machine.
using his razor toenails to skate.
There you go, Tom. Tom said what I was going to say. Russian machine doesn't break.
Amazing.
Impressive, man. Impressive how many games that guy has played, how much hockey that dude has played in his life. This being the longest injury stunt, I guess we could call it that.
4 to 6 weeks
For
That's
him.
crazy.
For him. Just impressive. I hope he's able to get back, because I have him on my fantasy team. Tom, you're not getting him. He's going to sit on my IR. You're not getting him.
All right. So 2 things. I guess this was the hottest start he's ever had in his career too, which kind of sucks. And also, if you ask me to trade you Jason Robinson for a bag of pucks one more fucking time, Ethan, my God. What was the last
By the
one
way,
you
the bag of
He also-
pucks
no, hold on,
he's
hold on.
talking
Yeah.
about is a Bruins player.
He asked me to trade Mark Kastelik, who's in and out on the 4th line for the Bruins, for Jason Robinson. Like, what are we doing here?
Probably
He
the
has
same
30
point
more
production.
points.
Oh,
He has
that
30
more.
points
For real.
more than Jason
For
Robertson.
real.
Fantasy
Yes, but
points.
we know who the
Yeah,
who the better player is on that. Oh.
Cass is a bit of a Stars fan.
Sure, if he
I
wins
would-
me games, I don't care.
I wouldn't-
I'll
I
take your
wouldn't-
money too.
I wouldn't trade Robertson for Kastelicki.
Wait,
Um,
Cass, while we're here, real quick, can you read out the score of your matchup this week and who you're playing?
Am I playing you?
Yeah.
I haven't even opened the app all week long.
He's losing by like 60 points.
Yeah, it
Okay,
sounds
go ahead,
about right.
Jesse.
I'm
I
losing.
press the start active player at the beginning of the week, and I don't look at it first.
I'm losing in both of my leagues right now. I don't want to talk about it. Wrapping up the injury news. Seattle Kraken captain Jordan Eberle will be out at least 3 months after undergoing surgery on his pelvis. This news was posted yesterday by the team. The 34-year-old forward, he left a 3-1 win against the Chicago Blackhawks on November 14th. He got tangled up with Chicago defenseman Connor Murphy and then slammed into the end boards. Looked a little rough. I'm not surprised that this is going to be the type of injury that he's facing. 3 months without the Kraken captain, gonna suck for them.
Is it going to change much
No.
for them?
No, I don't think so. They didn't look good today. They played the Kings. They didn't get shut out. It was a 2-1 loss, but they had a pretty nice homestead until the New York Rangers came in on Sunday and beat them.
I mean, Eberle's got 4 guys ahead of him in points on the season. He's very low on ice time. I don't think it. I think Seattle will just keep being Seattle.
Yeah, but I mean, it's their captain, and I think that's
Yeah.
really where my mind is going with it. I think he's more of a locker room presence than anything.
Look at Mark Stone in Vegas. They somehow manage to do it every year without him. So
Do you think this is a similar situation? No, I don't. I
Not
don't
at
think. I don't think so at all.
He's close to IR though. Mark's done. It's almost time. It's almost that time of
We're
year.
looking, Jesse.
We are at 1 hour and 10 minutes. Good sir. Would you like to cut it over?
Sure, let's cut it right
Sure.
over.
We did have a couple other things that we wanted to talk about. Cass, we'll get to those next week if you're cool with that.
No problem. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And then, so we've got our interview with Matt Fensel from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're going to cut right to it.
Thank you, Matt, for being on. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you very much. So tonight we welcome Matt Fensel from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Matt covers all things Pittsburgh Penguins. And we've listened.
No problem. Happy to be here.
So we wanted to just talk a couple things about the team. General Manager Kyle Dubas recently indicated that everyone is available except for number 87. It became rather apparent the opening day roster might look a little different before the trade deadline. Do you think that would include Malkin and Letang? And if so, do you think that would generate interest from other teams around the league?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, the report, that he was basically saying a lot of players are available. I don't know if it's everyone. That's what I question. Yevgeny Malkin has a no trade clause. He recently indicated he wants to be here. Chris Letang also has a no trade clause. It's kind of tougher to kind of get a read on what he wants. But a big thing here is ownership. I mean, Fenway Sports Group committed to all three of these players in recent years. And they say they want them to stay here because that's what the players wanted. And that's what Fenway Sports Group wanted. Now, say if Chris Letang were to go to them and say, look, like I'm not on board with, what is very much a rebuild here, especially with the team performing the way it is. If he said, I want to be somewhere else, I do think ownership would work with them. But, I think probably what Kyle Dubas was just putting out there, like basically everyone but those guys, maybe Brian Rust as well, is available. So generally speaking, I think the report's true. I mean, I think the big names to watch for the Penguins are Marcus Pettersson, pretty steady left shot defenseman. He's in the final year of his contract. Ricard Raquel has some term. I think he has 3 years left, but he's playing really well. He's been one of their best players this year. And then guys like Drew O'Connor, kind of an under the radar guy who's a pending free agent, who's, a pretty good, big, fast 26-year-old player. So, I think that they move players throughout the course of the season, and they probably are if things continue to trend the way they are. It's probably going to be those kind of players unless somebody like Malkin or Letang were to go to Fenway and say, and the Penguins and Dubas and say, I think it's time for me.
It would be so weird to see any of those guys in another team's jersey. I mean, they've made their careers in that city, so to even consider that would be just bizarre. Where do you think the faith level is for the fan base in Kyle Dubas? Do you think that the fans have faith that he can get things done for them?
Yeah, with anything, I mean, I think there's like a mixed reaction, especially after the Penguins had a pretty rough first year under Dubas. And I think some fans are maybe a little bit, the ones not following the team super closely, might be a little bit confused with the direction because his first offseason, they made a bunch of win now moves. I mean, the Carlson trade, signing Ryan Graves, bringing back Tristan Jarry. And then they got into the season and the team was playing really poorly. And Dubas pulled the plug. They somehow rallied and almost made the playoffs anyways. But, Dubas said at the time when he traded Jake Gensel, like, look, we got to get younger. We got to kind of pivot into a little bit of a rebuild. He never said a rebuild, but that was it. So since then, all the moves they've made has been pointing towards a rebuild. I mean, their two biggest trades this summer were basically agreeing to take on Kevin Hayes and Cody Glass to get draft picks for doing it. So, so some fans are sort of like, well, wait, what are we doing here? But I think it's pretty clear that, Kyle Dubas decided to go for it, realized it was a bit of a miscalculation, and now he's changed course. So, I do think most fans are pretty high on him, especially the analytically inclined and the very much online Twitter fans. So we'll see. I mean, I do give him credit. I think the process of what he's doing now and acquiring these picks and players, I think they have 29 draft picks now in the next 3 drafts. It's needed after the team traded away so many picks and players, kind of chasing the cup for 16 straight years. But it just kind of comes down to execution. The easy part is tearing it down. The tough part is kind of figuring out which players to pick and who to build around going forward.
So, as the Bruins fan who just lost his head coach, I'm going to ask you about Mike Sullivan.
You guys want him?
Well, it's no secret he's had success in Pittsburgh. He's actually won cups, unlike Jim Montgomery. But obviously, the reports have said ownership still have confidence in him. But with the team's woes in recent years, there's been rumors circulating that he's on the hot seat. Do you think there's any merit to those rumors? And has there been any indication from the team that they can replace him or that he's lost the locker room?
Yeah, I think things have changed a little bit here in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if his seat is on fire, but it certainly is heated up. It is true that Fenway Sports Group really likes Mike Sullivan. Their chairman, Tom Warner, said last month, we think he's one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the league, which, may be true. People here might counter that doesn't mean he's the right coach for this team right now, because the team's really struggled. And it's not even just that they're losing. As we record this, they have the league's worst goal differential. In the last 15 games, they've blown 8 multi-goal leads. Somehow they managed to win 2 or 3 of those games, but it's just alarming, just how bad they've been and how the same things keep happening over and over and over. And, the fan base and some of the media are starting to, kind of advocate for Sullivan to go. But we haven't really seen fire Sully chants or anything like at the game. So I do think Fenway does really like him. But I think the thing that could change it is fan sentiment. If the fans start to really turn on him, or, some of these upcoming games here, you start to hear chants like that, maybe that's enough to push ownership and Kyle Dubas to make a change. But I don't know that anything's imminent right now. But like I said, things have definitely kind of changed here over the last couple of weeks with the way they've played.
Now, as a hypothetical, should he lose that coaching job, is Dave Quinn someone the Penguins can lean on as an interim? Do you think they'll bring someone in? Do you think they'll try and swipe Jim Montgomery? Or do you think they'd hire someone else?
I think they would look to see everything that was out there and explore all their options. In terms of internal options, interim options, obviously David Quinn makes a lot of sense. It's kind of a weird situation because he's very good friends with Mike Sullivan. They played together at BU, longtime friends. So that's kind of a delicate balance. I'm sure Sullivan would probably tell his friend, hey, it's an opportunity to coach again. Take
right.
it. That's often what happens in these situations, but it's still a little weird. But I also wouldn't say, don't rule out Mike Vellucci, and he might not be someone most fans know, but he won a Calder Cup in the AHL level with the Charlotte organization way back when. He's been on Sullivan's staff for a few years now. He's a really fiery guy. He relates well to the players. So I do think he would also at least be a consideration there. But I do think they would probably say, okay, we need to have a clean slate here if we're going to move on. And maybe that happens at the end of the season if there were to be a change. But I do think they would have an open mind about all the players or all the coaches that are out there.
And you had mentioned Erik Karlsson, and I think anyone who's been watching the Penguins has noticed that he has had a significant drop in production since he was acquired by the Penguins. We've seen the 45-point drop for when he won the Norris with the Sharks. And obviously there's some time that's needed to adjust when you come to a new team. But at this point, almost a quarter into the season, do you think that's enough time to adjust? Do you think he can get back up to where he was with the Sharks? What is the feel with him right now?
How much time do you got? He's the polarizing player on the team now, especially because it's a very in one corner you have analytics people, in the other corner you have the traditional hockey people. The numbers for Karlsson when he's on the ice, the advanced statistics are that he still really drives play. Very high up in expected goals percentage. And, I get stats from Sportlogic that also point to the fact that he's driving play. So even if the production's not there, they're still spending a lot of time in the offensive end. But when you watch the game, there are some nights where he's awesome and he's assertive and he's
Sure.
shooting and he actually skates. And then there's other games where it looks like he's never played hockey before or has no interest in moving his legs. And I know, the kind of sporadic intensity is something that is, very much irritated, hockey operations with the Penguins. So, I just think they brought him in, and this was Dubas's big gamble. I mean, they gave up a first and a second round pick to, make the salaries fit to fit him in. And he didn't have the payoff. They also thought he was going to boost the power play, and that hasn't happened. So you see it some nights, and you're like, man, like this is the guy. And I think part of the reason his numbers were so, bloated in San Jose is like he basically had to do everything all himself, and now he's, kind of a secondary cast member here with the Penguins. So there's a whole lot going on. So it really kind of depends on what night you see him play. But there's still those nights where you're like, wow, like, okay, like this is the player the Penguins wanted. And then the next game, he'll let somebody blow by him in the neutral zone or just stand there when, somebody scores at the net front. I mean, it's a interesting player.
And I think especially at the price point that he's at
Right.
now with the Penguins too, where you expect a lot more from him at that price and with that history behind him. And this isn't like a guy who's only been playing a year or two in the league that you're kind of like, okay, give him some time to find his footing. It's a significant chunk of the cap with him.
Yeah, it's 10 million. The Sharks retained, I think, 1.5 million of it. So it's more cap hit than Sidney Crosby takes out, for example. And there's a lot of ways you look at it. It wasn't an exact trade, but he's here now, and Jake Gensel, a very popular player, is not.
Right.
And I know those aren't exactly tied together, but they really are when you look at the kind of the pizza slices of the salary cap, that they moved him out and they brought in a Dubas guy and Carlson, and it hasn't really had the impact they anticipated.
Yeah, we did appreciate Gensel last year in Carolina for the little bit he was with us. Wish he had stayed with us.
Yeah, I mean, easy player to like. He's on the smaller side. Doesn't really have like an exceptional skill other than maybe hockey sense. He's very good at a lot of things, and you add it all up, and somehow he's able to be a 40-goal scorer.
Yeah.
So this next question was from one of the Penguins fans that is involved with Freeze the Puck Hockey. He's intrigued to know about their goaltending. It seems in his mind that their goaltending identity has been lost ever since they let Marc-Andre Fleury go. Do you think Tristan Jarry can play at the caliber he's shown to be able to play to in the previous years? And if not, who does the Penguins have in the pipeline?
Yeah, the Fleury Matt Murray thing after the two cups is definitely like one of those sliding doors moments. I mean, it was a no-brainer for the Penguins to keep Matt Murray at the time. He had been in net for 2 cup clinchers and was cheaper and younger. It made sense, but Fleury obviously was like a very big part of the heart and soul of the organization, and I don't know that they've fully replaced that. That's only part of it. You have to go out there and make saves too. Fleury's had some great seasons in there. But anyways, yeah, Matt Murray, he got hurt and kind of lost his confidence, and he's still trying to get back. And they turned to Jarry, and it's a lot of the same thing. I mean, he dealt with injuries 2-3 years ago, and he just hasn't had the same sort of level of play. I mean, with him, it's always been consistency, even dating back to his time in the minors. Like, he was kind of a space cadet during games. He just had a hard time kind of getting through games and practices. He's cleaned that up, but you still see it. But really, in the last calendar year, it just seems like his confidence left him. He struggled a lot last year, and then down the stretch, the Penguins turned to Alex Nedeljkovic, and Jarry hasn't been able to win his job back. Spent some time in the minors, so we'll see. They do have a couple of promising goalies. I don't know if they're considered like blue chip goalies, but with goalies, it seems to be really hard for people to evaluate them.
Oh yeah.
They're weirdos. I used to be one, so I can say that. But, the big ones, obviously Joel Blomqvist, he just spent some time in the NHL, was really good. Honestly, he's been their best goalie, but it was more of a kind of a numbers crunch business decision to send him back to the minor leagues. And the other is Sergei Murashov, who was a 4th-round pick 2 years ago, I believe. Kind of a mysterious Russian guy that no one really knew anything about here. And he came over the summer and he really impressed the Penguins in their rookie development camp, and they signed him. So right now he's in Wheeling of the ECHL playing there because Blomqvist needs the net and Wilkes. But those are two guys to keep an eye on, with obviously Blomqvist being the one who we'll probably see back in the NHL before the end of the season.
I'm going to kind of go off script here. Were you surprised when they signed Jari to the 5-year contract for the $5.375 million?
No, it wasn't a great free agent market for goalies. I mean, he was viewed as the best option. And I mean, I think I'm trying to remember, like, one of the other good options is Freddie Anderson for a Canes fan down there. It was like players like that. I think maybe Antti Ranta as well, like kind of players of that ilk. So they could have gotten someone cheaper or shorter term. But I think with Jari, it was sort of like the devil they knew, so to speak. Like they knew he wasn't the perfect option, and he had some playoff struggles, but they also, at that point, he was 1 year removed from an all-star season, or at least like a stretch of games that got him an all-star nod midway through the season. So I think that's kind of what into it. And I think maybe some of it was also sort of like asset management. Like, you know, they didn't want to lose this guy who had value for nothing in the free agent market. I'm sure they thought, like, okay, like worst case scenario, we'll be able to trade this guy for something in a year or two. Well, I don't think they can trade him for a bag of bucks right now.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really worked out. So, you know, I'm not confident that Jari is going to get back on track, but I also, like, we don't know. I mean, I'm not going to rule anything out. I know a lot of people are already writing him off, but you see strange things all the time with professional athletes, especially goalies later in the career. I mean, it's not out of the question. Maybe it has to happen in another city, but it's not out of the question that Jari becomes an all-star again.
So not all is bad in Pittsburgh. The team is currently in the middle of the pack on the power play, especially considering what happened last year with the power play. What do you think they've done to improve the power play this year compared to last year?
Yeah, it started hot. It's kind of slowed down a little bit. I mean, I think the big things we've seen, and David Quinn is running that unit, is they just kind of picked up the pace and they're stretching the ice a little bit more. I mean, we're so used to, and by we, I mean like all hockey fans across the league are used to seeing the Penguins power play that we've seen for all these years with, you know, Sid down off the right post and Malkin in the right circle there, taking one-timers. And it's kind of an overloaded look, and it just has become predictable. They got to the point where they're just like completely stationary. And if you watch all the power plays now, guys are moving, changing spots. They're using the bumper. There's just a lot going on. And I think teams just kind of packed it in, and the Penguins didn't really have any answers for it. So, and there wasn't much urgency either. So I think the two biggest changes we've seen is they have picked up the pace. They're moving the puck more. They talk about having more of like a 5-on-5 attacking mentality where you just like move the puck and play. And then if something's there, you attack, and also shooting more. But it kind of comes and goes. I mean, they struggle a little bit. They start to revert to old bad habits, make bad passes, short-handed chances. So I still think that's a work in progress. But I mean, that's like an area, you know, the team is really scuffling right now. If they could get the power play going, maybe that could potentially be a game changer for them. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And I'm talking like top 5 unit there. Like obviously they've been solid, but like, you know, like Edmonton type power play numbers.
Yes.
We'd all love that.
So, yeah, right. So this last season, Rucker McGorty was traded to Pittsburgh from Winnipeg. He played 3 games in the NHL with no points, was at a -1. He was sent down to Scranton. How is he looking down there? Is this someone that the AHL fans should be like really keeping an eye out? Like, what is the look for him?
Yeah, I don't think the plan was for him to start the year in NHL. Some people might not believe that, given the Winnipeg stuff and how, you know, it was reported that he wanted playing time, and that's why he came to Pittsburgh. I mean, I've heard they basically told him before training camp, like, you really got to knock our socks off to stick here. And in part, he made the team because they had a few injuries, and then once guys came back, they sent him to Wilkes. I actually just talked to the Wilkes-Barre coach today, Kirk McDonald, and, you know, I think Rucker only has 1 goal and 3 points at the AHL level through about a dozen games, but he was basically saying, like, this is a guy we are using in the penalty kill a lot. This is a guy that we're using to close out games. Things happen in a good way when he's on the ice, even if he's not the one putting on the net. So, I mean, obviously, I think there's a little bit of spin there. They would like him to produce. I mean, they gave up Braden Yeager, another really good prospect, to get him. But I don't think there's anything to be worried about there. And I do think, like, the things that he's doing well with defending and playing more of a bottom six game and killing penalties, like, if anything, that's going to get him an opportunity in Pittsburgh sooner, and it's going to earn him more playing time, because we often see, like, okay, you have a skilled type player, but we don't have a spot in the bottom six, so we're just not even going to call you up. So, I do think they want him to settle in, develop at his own pace, and then we'll see him at some point, maybe before the end of this calendar year. But I think they're pretty high on him. I've talked to him a little bit. He's a really good kid, driven kid. I think he's going to be a player in the league. It's just a question of what his ceiling is.
Do you think people put too much stock into those numbers of, like, the goals, the assists, versus, like, remembering that they need players on the ice who can help make plays happen?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously there's more to the game than just production, but, like, on the flip side, I mean, they gave up, he's considered their top prospect. So, like, people don't want to hear, like, oh, okay, like, we think he could be a pretty good third liner. Like, that's not what fans want to hear, especially in Pittsburgh, where, I mean, let's be honest, like, this is my 7th year covering the team, and I think the highest pedigreed player who came up from the minor leagues was P.O. Joseph, and no knock on him, like, great guy. He's in St. Louis now, but, like, he's like a 5th defenseman in the league. So I think some of it comes from the fan base just being starved for having anyone to get excited about. And we are kind of seeing some of these players come in, but, I think that kind of factors into the expectations and the excitement that some fans have for Rucker personally.
And are there any current AHL players that are like, ooh, Pens fans really need to keep an eye out for this one? This is going to be an upcoming star.
I don't know if we have any upcoming stars to talk about here. You see the list of, like, the top 50 prospects, like, around the league, and the Penguins don't have any guys that crack that list. Now, they've had guys in the past like Jake Gensel and Brian Russ who ended up becoming those players, but they do have a few guys that I do think fans can be excited about. 2 of them are already in Pittsburgh right now, Sam Poulin and Owen Pickering. I think Pickering will ultimately go back to Wilkes-Barre, but he's played pretty well in his first 2 games. And then Tristan Brose is a player that, probably people outside Pittsburgh aren't familiar with. He was a 2nd-round pick a few years back, a kid from Minnesota. He played for the Golden Gophers for a year, didn't work out, transferred to Denver, just helped them win the Frozen Four title. He had 2 overtime winners in that tournament, and he's carried it into the AHL level. He's scored several goals through a dozen games, so he's an exciting player. I mean, I don't know if we'll see him get, an extended look this year, given it's his first year, but he's one. And then a couple of the guys from the Jake Gensel trade are also in the AHL. Vasily Ponomarev, actually, he's in Pittsburgh now. They're kind of coming and going. He's one guy, and the other one is Ville Koivunen. He's produced really well at the AHL level. So they do have a few players worth, keeping tabs on, which, like I said, that's a change from, my first 6 years on this job.
You guys have had it so good in Pittsburgh for so long with having Sidney Crosby, and it's been so impressive to see what this team can do and how well he can perform. And now just trying to see at the tail end of his career, fans just trying to figure out what their future is going to look like. So I appreciate that. Tristan Brose, you mentioned, he has some very impressive numbers with the University of Denver. 16 goals, 24 assists, 40 points to help get them over that hump there. So which of the following players do you think will have their number retired in Pittsburgh? Crosby, I think, is a shoo-in. Letang, Malkin, or Fleury. Do you think that those numbers are going to head up to the rafters?
I say Crosby is a lock and Malkin is a lock. The Penguins have been very selective with numbers they retired. Jaromir Jagr was just the 3rd when they did that last year. Obviously, Mario is 1, and the other was Michel Briere, who died in a car accident. That was in the 80s. Young player, really promising, tragic passing. So he's the other one. So they've been very selective. But yes, Sid's a lock. I think Gino's a lock. And then it comes down to definite maybes for Letang and Fleury. Because, the Pens had those 2 cup wins in the 90s, and none of those players, even though they were fan favorites, have made the cup. But, with the Tang, it's the longevity. I mean, this is his 18th, 19th year with the Penguins, won 3 cups with the Penguins. So I think that counts for something. And Fleury spent less time there, but he is so popular.
Yeah.
Fans might riot if
I love him.
said, we're not doing it. Yeah, I mean, who could not like that man? So, I think those guys are maybes, but I don't know. If it was up to me, I'd put all 4 of them in, but obviously it's not.
I'm a Rangers fan, and I have no choice but to love that guy. I love the way that he plays. I love his personality. I love the practical jokes that he plays on his teammates. Everything about Fleury is awesome.
And I will say, I respect that the Penguins are selective. I mean,
Sure.
I traveled all the cities, and some of them have 18 numbers retired. I don't even know how many
New York,
select numbers for some of these teams. I mean, obviously you have the history. Toronto
Sure.
has multiple guys with the same number retired.
Yep.
So I get being selective. That's why they have a Ring of Honor or something like that. I guess if you want to kind of have a second tier of these types of players in a franchise's history.
So speaking of Fleury and his personality, in your experience, who is your favorite player to interview, and why is that?
I will say that a lot of these guys are really good guys. They definitely make you feel welcome. I write some strange stories sometimes, and they are willing to put up with my nonsense. I just was talking to a player. I don't know if you saw this summer. Somebody on Twitter made a list of all the NHL player names and what their Scrabble score would be. I don't know if any of you guys
No, I didn't see that.
Well, I figured out that Ryan Graves is a big Scrabble fan. He played with his partner a lot during COVID. And so once I found that, I was like, okay, I'm going to quiz him. I'm going to see how many of these that he can name. And I talked to Ryan today, and he was really great. So these guys put up with my nonsense. So I appreciate that. If I had to do an all-time team, I mean, Brian Rust has been here my entire tenure. And he's a go-to guy for literally everything, whether it's after a tough loss or this kind of nonsense. And one thing people might know about him is he has a stutter, and he's overcome being a stutter to become one of the voices of the team. So that's a cool story there. I jotted him down. What I say, Marcus Patterson is a really good guy to talk about X's and O's after the game. But I think I'd have to pick Sidney Crosby. He really does make time for everyone. And obviously, his stature as a player makes everything instantly, more cool to have certain conversations with him. My first year on the beat or second year on the beat, it was U.S. Thanksgiving. So not as big of a deal to a Canadian guy, but I'm sure he had better places to be. But he got off the rink, and I was like, hey, Sid, I'm going to talk to you. Your dad played goalie. I know you wanted to play goalie as a kid. Can we talk about your experience as a goalie and what might have happened if you actually ended up playing goalie?
Wow.
And, he sat there and talked to me for 10 minutes. So yeah, one of the great joys of the job and in my career is this is one of the 5 to 7 greatest players ever. And, I'm allowed to sit there and talk to him about last year or 2 years ago, I wrote about you've used pretty much the same stick your entire life. Tell me about your first stick and how it's evolved and changed. So it's really cool to be able to just kind of pick his brain about the littlest of things, and he'll give you the time of it. I mean, as you hear it all the time, but as good of a player he is, he really is, an even better person. It's truly.
That's great. Now, sidebar of that, obviously if you're fresh on the job, your first year or two, you're probably a little bit nervous talking to, especially someone like Sidney Crosby. Have you gotten more comfortable and more personable with him as time goes on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm socially awkward, period. So it's hard to talk to anyone. But yeah, the players do make you feel pretty welcome. I mean, obviously, after tough losses, and there's been a lot of them here in Pittsburgh recently. It definitely tests kind of the working relationship you have there. But I think most players are pretty grounded, and they're, if anything, being able to ask them about nonsensical things. If anything, they appreciate the fact that I'm not asking them about a tough loss or anything like that. So yeah, the players do a pretty good job of kind of understanding the game. And I think too, I covered football previously, and there's a lot of theories. about why players in different sports might kind of handle the media differently. But I think, NFL is huge and hockey maybe doesn't get the same kind of publicity. So I also think players kind of understand that their part in that. Like, okay, like I'm going to talk to the media and give fans what they need to kind of help grow the game. So I do think that factors into it as well.
As a reporter, do you ever sometimes get tired of hearing like the very political PR answers that players give versus some other sports where you see more of like their personality come out when they're answering media questions?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely see that like post game. I mean, I can deal with a little bit of like get pucks deep type cliches, like that's fine. But post game, especially with all these like blown 2-goal leads that we've had in Pittsburgh, it's like I could just like copy and paste the same quotes, like change the team name and the date and call it a day, and I don't think my editors would even notice. So there is a little bit of that. I mean, that's part of like kind of like the character of hockey as well, where they don't want to like say anything inflammatory publicly, but like, come on, give us something juicy every once in a while.
Right? Like I just want some like personality like sparked into it. Is one thing as a Canes fan watching like Kochetkov as he's learning English get into these media situations where he's not that PR polished package just yet, and you get some of that excitement when he's interviewing that I do wish some other players we would hear more of that.
Yeah, I think we might see that kind of change a little bit over time. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be drastically changed, but I do think players kind of they want to have their, I don't want to say brand because that makes it seem like the intentions are off, but like they do realize that their own kind of their entity and their own personality, and they have their own interests off the ice that they're kind of more willing to kind of show to people. So I do think, hopefully, maybe fingers crossed that we'll see guys talk a little bit more here going forward.
The only time I could think about that happening in hockey in recent memory, it wasn't even a player, it was a coach, and it was Daryl Sutter talking about Huberdeau going into the bathroom in the middle of the game. So loved that.
Well, I feel like the Amazon series that they came out with over the fall kind of helped expose some of the behind-the-scenes stuff you don't really see, especially with the Edmonton and the Florida series going the way it did, and Matty Tkachuk's just hanging by the pool in the Stanley Cup final, just waiting for the game to start.
But that's just only going to grow the game, too.
Sure,
So
agreed.
I mean, I feel like the league and the teams and the players like should lean into that more.
So before we started recording, we kind of asked you, and you said you travel with the team a little bit. Where's your favorite venue to visit in North Carolina?
Okay, are we talking city or arena?
You both.
Ooh, both.
Yeah.
All right, city is like the usual, like Nashville, Vegas,
Oh, yeah.
Florida. But my number one favorite is Vancouver. Just
Yep.
like a beautiful, beautiful place. Like
I love it.
I force myself to run because I eat like crap on the road. But Vancouver's like so pretty. I can just run for like 5 miles and I don't think anything of it. I mean, it truly is breathtaking. In terms of the arenas, number one would be Detroit. I think it's a cool place. I mean, the sight lines are really cool. It's like almost like the overhead cam that you would see in the NHL video games, and a lot of kind of open air, good food, which is important for us media types. Seattle's really cool too. I mean, that's a cool venue. Like it's like basically underground.
It's nuts,
like the top
yeah.
floor of the arena is the ground when you walk in, and obviously it's done to the nines because it's brand new. In terms of like the throwbacks, like the Saddle Dome, I don't want to call it a dump, but it's like a lovable dump. Like it has personality, it has the catwalk. Like I love some of these old arenas too. So like that would be up there. I'm trying to think anything else comes to mind, but like those are kind of like the three that really, really stand out. Probably going to offend some fan bases here, including Calgary, because they just got their arena. Well, they're getting a new one, so
They're getting a new one. They'll be
I
fine.
think there's like a concession there that maybe it is a dump. But and one of my favorites too, I'll say real quick, was like the Coliseum. I covered a couple of playoff series there, and that's the loudest I've heard a hockey arena. The fans are into it. So that was like another older arena, but just like on the energy of the fan base alone was great. And, obviously I'm not sucking up here, but MSG is MSG. So
Yeah.
it's always a cool place to go.
So my wife and I kind of do the bucket list thing where we visit all the arenas, and I was pleasantly surprised. You probably can't admit it because, cross-state rivals. I was surprised with Wells Fargo Arena. I thought even though the Flyers haven't been that good, the atmosphere was awesome. you hear all the stuff about Philly fans being Philly fans. Everyone was very respectful, and like they had the flames come out of the jumbotron. It was wild when I was there. So I thought that one was an interesting one for sure.
Well, I'm always amused by like their treatment of the Pens and Crosby. And,
Yeah.
they do the starting lineup, and everyone just yells "sucks." Like I appreciate the dedication to the bit.
And Gritty doing gritty things.
Number one mascot.
Agreed.
My kids love Gritty, and obviously we grew up. They grew up in Pittsburgh, but they're like fascinated with Gritty. I'll show them. There you go. I show them like a Gritty video, and my kids are like, "More, please."
My kids are terrified. My younger one was terrified when I first showed her Gritty. She's just like, "No, mommy, no, thank you." Like very opposite.
You got Bowie now too. That's right up the alley too.
My kids aren't familiar with Bowie. Maybe I need to introduce them.
Got to get him
Jesse
to
can
a
help with that one too.
got to get him to a Seattle game. I met Bowie a couple times. He beat me up while I was in my Rangers jersey. So.
Oh wow. Okay. There you go.
And then a final question, just to kind of wrap this all up, and I feel like it's a quintessential question to ask. Now, a quarter of the way into the season, what is your prediction for our Western final winner, our Eastern, and like who's going to win the cup based off of what you've seen so far?
Oh god, this is gonna be bad because I get like so hyper focused on the Penguins. The last thing I'm gonna do when I come home is watch another game play. Obviously, Winnipeg is a wagon, as they say right now. I mean, they're doing great. It looks like a lot of what they're doing is replicable. I still really like Dallas. I really like Colorado. You have to think Edmonton's going to punch it into hyperdrive. I mean, I think those teams, even though they're kind of the obvious ones, are going to be around there. I think the East is a little more wide open.
Yeah.
Like the Rangers have kind of tailed off, and but they have Shesterkin, and he could easily carry him to the cup. Carolina's been better than some people thought, given some of their losses. Can they break through? I don't know. The other side of the conference is weird. I mean, I still think like Florida, I think Florida is like the best team on paper, and they're obviously built to win. But all these like deep playoff fronts is going to catch up to them. So, and then I think a dark horse is if they can ever kind of like get in gear here is New Jersey. They might just like outright miss the playoff. I mean, that's what I said before the year is like they could miss the playoffs and they could go to the Cup Finals. Very high on Jack Hughes if they can kind of get the goaltending, which they should. I mean, they have two capable goalies. They're a team that could surprise. So I don't know. I think I just named every team in the league that way. I can get one. I can tell you that the Penguins won't be one of them. So
No one will get mad at you for naming everybody.
yeah.
Fine. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm at Matt Vensel on Twitter. You can find me at the Post Gazette. You can read about Ryan Graves playing a silly Scrabble game there, or the latest blown lead by the Penguins.
Cool, Matt. Thank you so much for doing this. We very much appreciate it.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure,
Yeah, thank
anytime.
you.
I'd love to come back.
Thank you.
So that was Matt Vensel of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We appreciate him very much. That was our first ever interview. I had a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning. Amanda and Cass both made me feel like I was rushing myself. It was terrible. Cass is back, but where the hell did Ethan go? All right. I guess that's it for us, right? We'll see you next week. Follow us on Twitter at Top Shelf Dusters. Facebook.com/TopShelfDusters. Email us, TopShelfDusters@gmail.com. If you have a reporter that you want us to reach out to and interview, that'd be cool to know. That's going to be something we're going to try to keep doing. So thank you so much. We will catch you all next week.
Go Stars.
Deadpool, you suck.